Black Magic Woman podcast acknowledges the traditional owners of the land we have recorded this episode on. We also acknowledge traditional owners of the land where you, the listener or viewer, are tuning in from. We would like to pay our respects to our elders past and present and acknowledge that this always was Aboriginal land and always will be Aboriginal land.
Welcome to the Black Magic Woman podcast with Mundanara Bales.
Hey you mob, thank you for joining me for another amazing episode of Black Magic Woman podcast. I am really looking forward to this yarn. It's been a topic of conversation in terms of meeting people from different cultures and backgrounds, also experiencing racism and discrimination as a resident or a ratepayer on the beautiful sunny coast on Kabi Kabi Country. So I've joined forces with a few different people on the sunny coast for an amazing initiative, which is actually supported by the Sunshine Coast Council, called Shine a Light on Racism. I really want people to have a look at the resources in the show notes, especially after this episode, and see how you can take action and educate yourself, or even educate your family and friends or even colleagues in the workplace. You don't have to live on the sunny coast to see the value in these resources, but it's just one really important initiative that I guess I've committed to as an ambassador, along with my brother here that's joining me for this yarn today. So I can't wait to hear all of the other things that you've been doing. But also it'd be good for my listeners and also our viewers on YouTube to hear a little bit about your story and how did you even come to the sunny coast. But right now we're on the beautiful lands of the Yagara peoples here in Mundanara. So I just want to acknowledge where I am right now, usually on Kabi Kabi Country, but not today. We have bumped into each other at the Human Rights Summit here at the State Library. So just who would have thought that you and I'd be sitting here now doing this podcast? So it's definitely meant to be, as I believe, you know, the old people and the ancestors. I always think of when you cross paths with someone and you're like, I'm meant to meet this person. So, I can't wait to hear your story. I don't know your full story from the few interactions and the few meetings and a few events that we've been to. So, my brother, tell the listeners a little bit about yourself. Your name, who's your mob, and a little bit about where you grew up.
Oh, thank you very much. I think this is long overdue discussion. Of course, I want to acknowledge the Yagara people and tribal peoples that we're meeting here today and pay respect to their elder past and present and emerging ones as well. So, it's been long overdue, like I said. My name's Walters Nkemfack. I hail from the British Southern Cameroon. Most people would know Cameroon as a French country, but I come from the minority English part of Cameroon, so I understand and know colonialism not once but twice. We were colonized by the French and the British, and then further recolonized by our French Cameroon brothers. So we live in a very oppressed, and so my journey started. I did serve in the military, but got an incident where we got held hostage, and then when I got relocated, I didn't have the options to go back home. They gave me a couple of options. I chose to go to Germany because I love football. They call it in Australia soccer.
Yes.
I'm very passionate about that. So I relocated in Germany, where I met, whilst in Germany, I met a girl that was born in Rocky and grew up on the sunny coast. And we started dating. And a few years later, we decided, when she had a child, after we had gotten married traditionally, we decided that we were going to relocate to the sunny coast. I think, in my opinion, the most beautiful part of Australia, the most beautiful part of Australia. So we relocated there, came into the Sunshine Coast, minding my own business, just trying to, support my family and be, a good citizen. I started getting exposed in public setting when I had issues at work. And then from then, it simultaneously happened with when my kids started kindy. when he went to kindy, he was like really isolated, racially abused so much so that he came back home and didn't want to go back to school. And I, as a parent that had paid for private education for their kid, I got really angry, and I thought, I've put all this amount of money, my kid has to be in a safe space. So I called up the school, had a yarn with the principal and the teacher. In the first instant, I was ready to fight as a fighter, but just having that conversation, I just felt the conviction that there's need for something more than just fighting. I kind of like, it was young kids. If it was like adult that I was facing from my work at that time when I was working at the Sunshine Coast Health Services, and I was having a lot of racial discrimination in terms of work, in career progression and stuff like that. But this was different scenario with my kid because he was young and
How old are we talking about?
He was like, I sent him to school like he was 4 turning 5, so like a year early. Yeah. So I went into the school after having these conversations with the principal, and we decided that I should come. I have an education background as well, so they decided I should come and do something with the kids. I went into that school, on the day that I was traveling to the school, I collected leaves in different shapes, sizes, and color. And I sat in the room myself with the kids. We sat down, we conduct some sort of a social experiment. And at the end of that experiment, we all determined that all of the items that I had brought in were leaves, but it came in different shades, sizes, and color. So I use that analogy to explain to the kids that we as people, we come in different shapes, sizes, and color. And you could see their little minds going all over the place. And I grounded that with like playing like bongos and singing rhythms and poems in French and in my native dialect.
So you made this learning experience fun.
Yes.
Not angry.
Not being
and
angry.
not blaming the children.
Yeah.
For, saying, hey, he's dark or you're black or you're different, or I can't play with you because you don't look like them or you're not invited. Yeah. So instead of going into all of that, you had a different approach.
Yeah, I had a totally different approach. And I was doing that in real time. I'd never actually thought, I was just like, how can I make these kids to understand that?
You made it up on the spot.
On the go, yeah. So it wasn't like a carefully planned, calculated stuff. No. I collected those leaves right from the time that I was getting into the school.
Yeah.
And after that incident, what taught me and what grounds everything that I've been doing in this space of social justice over the years is that those kids, my kid became the most popular kid in school. Everyone wanted to be their friends when they were
because his dad is cool.
Yes, exactly. So and that is the phenomenon. People are always quick to judge without like first impression of people. They that's where they judge you. And so that experience created not only with the kids, the parents. The kids went back home and explained that scenario to their families. Their families were like, oh my goodness, if I'm the one, I would be, much more frustrated and wanting to fight. But they found the approach very interesting in such a way that it sparked conversations that when I went to drop off my kid or met them on like football, sport days and all those sort of things, it just went wild. And I was like, wow.
So you had parents probably interacting with you, conversing, engaging with you over this experience with their kids, which probably has created relationships for you.
Oh, long-time relationships that I've got with with people that I never actually knew because they just appreciated the opportunity that I got in.
This is what I need to do.
Yeah.
Like I need to find a way to go into the schools, not take my kids out of the schools. My mum and dad took us out of 8 schools growing up. I went to 14 different schools. So this little approach, this little experiment, right? If we really want to get creative, we can actually come up with some amazing little, like you said, it was like a social experiment. But then it creates there's a shift with then adults, parents communicating and not feeling uncomfortable around us as people of colour.
Exactly.
Because we live in a very white community, right?
Absolutely.
The Sunshine
Especially
Coast.
the Sunny Coast, yeah.
There's not much diversity. So you do feel that people are a little bit uncomfortable or on edge around you, or they just don't know how to act normal.
100%. Like the idea about Sunshine, because they're like, we are diverse, but we, it's just, there is this uncommunicative sort of approach that, setting that is on the coast, that even though we are diverse, but just be you and let's be me. And, and you would, most often you get those really strong, aggressive and racial things like in the pubs where people have drank too much. But sometimes it's like this segregation, and I think there need to be much more opportunities where conversations can happen.
And it can start with parents in the schoolyard.
Schools.
Through children.
Yeah.
Like, this is amazing that this has happened and has basically, been something that you can do as a positive step, practical step to address something that needs to be addressed.
Yeah.
But most people don't know what to do.
Well, yeah.
When it comes to children in the classroom, little people, sometimes I think, let's go in. I've done this with my kids, take in the Aboriginal languages map and talk to them about this map and who we are and where we come from. As while they're 3 and 4, start introducing this concept, that we are Aboriginal people, but we're not, too different to you.
Yeah.
So your children now, how old?
It's 12 and 8 turning 9.
Yeah. And how are they finding school now? They're still living on the sunny coast?
They're still living. We've transitioned into the, since that experience, it's been so joyful because my first son that was not said he wasn't going to go to school anymore, and he loves learning. He loves school because I had to make that experience better for him. And currently with my second son, there is a little bit of that, and I haven't actually done, which I need to do similar, because he is finding that challenge
of being dark skinned.
Yes, he keeps questioning why the other kids are a bit different, and I know that comes from the comments that these other kids are making.
Of course.
So I've just transitioned them into a new school, and they're settling in really well.
And this is what we need to do when they're in new schools. You have to start again,
over again and over again, and it's a very draining process, because especially when you're paying your kids into a private school, right?
Of course.
If it's a public school, you're like, okay, well, that is just the norm. But once you're paying for that private education, you need.
You're not going to tolerate it.
Yeah.
You're less tolerant.
You're less tolerant.
Not going to accept what's happening.
The basic,
But at the same time, you work full time, right? You've got a job and other responsibilities and priorities. How do you make time then to go in and do the work that educators should be doing? Parents of these children should also be, taking some responsibility as well, don't you think?
I think in there is brokenness everywhere. There is, parents, sometimes when they leave their school, their kids to go to school, it's like they've just unleashed, they're
your responsibility.
But the standard that we want, especially for private schools, right? Because not everyone, it's not like I feel privileged to be able to send my kid there.
Of course.
Not everyone. So there should be that expected standard of, the school doing more.
Of course.
But I think even though that was a very sad and difficult experience for myself, it grounded me in the work that I do today, because simultaneously I had work-related issues at that time, and I wanted to find solutions. Like, I was like, where are coming into a new country, not being able to advocate for yourself in terms of workers' rights. I never even knew that there was like union sort of,
Fair Works Act,
and
the Racial Discrimination Act.
Yes, all those things I was like very oblivious of, and I was just in this pain. The Human Rights Act, the Human Rights Commission, which again it's very it's very limited because like I remember when I had issues at work and I put in a case with them, they told me that it was going to take 18 months. I'm like, I'm going to be like mentally deranged by that time.
Yes.
By the time this case eventually going to get to be heard.
And that's what deters people from actually going through the process or the system of making complaints.
Yeah.
Because they know either it falls on deaf ears or the process is so long that it's not worth your time going through it all.
Absolutely.
But it also can ostracize you, you can be an outcast because you have, ruffled the feathers or whatever. You have upset people or you're rocking the boat.
Yeah.
And I'm interested, especially with a lot of our listeners and viewers that might be in similar situations or circumstances, especially in the workplace, that are on the receiving end of racism and discrimination, but it becomes normalized.
Yes.
When you're on the receiving end, like literally, daily, it's like you become desensitized to racism and discrimination. Then you just accept it when it happens. It's not exactly a shock because you're so used to it, but it shouldn't be that way, that we tolerate it and that we allow this. But at the same time, do you want to rock the boat and potentially lose your job?
You might have a mortgage. You have to feed kids. There's so many things that, but the danger is that immediate, build your resilience to go through that in the immediate, but the long-term impact of that is much more dangerous than doing nothing is actually bad. Because if you keep going each day, there is a moment where you're gonna snap on the street, and people are gonna be like, "Why are they doing that on the street?"
Because they've bottled it up. They've held it in so long, internalized it, and then it comes out in probably in a very
uncontrolled manner, and people will be like, "What?" And that would be your definition. You would be defined by that one incident, and nobody's gonna take the time to understand. What led to that moment. So again, that's why not doing anything in that moment, just trying to I'm not gonna rock the boat.
Just do my job.
Just do my job and be a good, soldier and just
and get my paycheck. Get in, get out.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's very hard to find a job.
Yes.
Especially on the Sunshine Coast.
Yes,
But in particular, let's put another lens on. Let's put race, colour,
the dynamics.
Right? And there's a lot of research, especially from the ANU about 15 years ago. They've done some research about resumes with English names, Chinese names, Indian names, and said people with names like ours. Mine is an Aboriginal name. It's 30%. Harder or something to get a job or get a call back because of the name on a resume?
Good story. The job that I was actually fighting for to keep at that time, I applied for it the first time, didn't hear back. Second time, didn't hear back. When printed a hard copy application and went and dropped it, that is when I got, because I looked like someone and not only that, after jumping all those hoops of getting that job, in terms of progression, I was like, there is this, most Africans or maybe most migrants, we never perform 100%. We give at least 200% at any given time. When someone is doing 10, we make sure that we want to do 20 to be able to make 2.
You work 10 times harder. What you're saying is you work double, put double the effort in than
my
black people, migrant communities.
Yeah. And
to prove yourself.
But that was always looked after, get looked after, and
it gets overlooked.
There wasn't any progress. There were opportunities that came available. I was the most qualified
in terms of promotions,
the most qualified in terms of education, physicality, and every capacity. But no, I did not fit the framework.
What did you study? I'm interested.
I have so I have I did in the military. I did my civil engineering in the military.
Civil engineering.
Yes, yeah.
So you're a civil engineer.
Yes, but after I completed that, I did an education program that I went and taught in refugee camps around, and that was kind of my deployment around Africa. So that is my background, but my experience not only being I have international experience. I've been in Europe, I've lived in 3 continents. So that brings a whole lot of experience that in terms of customer service or representing a brand, you wouldn't want anybody than myself.
Yeah.
Because if a business like a hospital or health services is looking for anybody, they want somebody that is able to
communicate across cultural barriers or boundaries. Yeah, cross-cultural skills.
It's not, you don't learn that in the university.
You don't learn, it's life experience.
Yes.
It's going out there and actually communicating with people, talking to people. Yeah. And that's kind of what I was hoping, when I first met you, I was thinking about, how do I find more, and I told you this, how do I find more people that are trying to just live life, raise family, but also, on the other hand, that we are also dealing with more racism and discrimination, especially after the election. There's been a lot more racism, and people are much more comfortable with their racism as well. How do we come together like a support group? Like there's Alcoholics Anonymous, gambling, and whatever, right? Narcotics, whatever. All these anonymous groups that people come together, self-help groups.
Yeah.
What about in terms of, coming together to talk about how do we stamp out racism? So that initiative, Shine a Light on Racism, I was so excited that there was going to be other people that I could talk to and share experiences and ideas and go, I'm going to try that next time. Like you've got kids that age, mine are a little bit older. Yeah. So we're now part of this group, right, where we're ambassadors. Yeah. Why did you put your hand up to be an ambassador?
I think when I thought about a community that my son was going to grow up into and that I've eventually kind of bought a home and I'm living in, it freaked me out. So I was like, I need to do something because I can't actually go back home technically with what's happening back there. This is the only safe space that my kids have got. And if it's unsafe, and at that time, I was ready to pack up and move. Had it been that there wasn't any stuff happening back in Southern Cameroon, I would have just gone back home because I was at that stage, how you said you wanted to move away from the Sonic. I was at that space where I was about to move. But I said, well, I've got to do something. And I think all those things happened in a blessing, in a blissful way because it kept me in the job that I was comfortable with. I was just like, wow, I'm just going to keep doing it. I don't really need to think about it. It comes, my skill set, it's too easy. I wasn't even challenged. The money was okay. But actually, the spring brought me to my next level because it activated me to become a social justice advocate. And that from those things, when it was, the 2 things were happening at that time as well because I was having conversations with people around, I went out to community centers and all those places and tried to get solutions. And then that's how I came across, I got invited to, by the Sunshine Coast community development officer that the mayor was going to approve this campaign, and then got invited to sit on the multicultural advisory board on the Sunshine Coast. And that's how I got into the space. And when I got onto the advisory board, they had been planning to do this something about racism for 5 years, but it never eventuated to anything. So
I wonder why.
I think there was but me coming in with my push and continuous, it was my story, it was my journey. I couldn't hold back, so something needed to be done, and my kids had to grow in this environment. So how do we make it better for everyone so everyone feels safe? So that is kind of what pushed me to get into that space.
Amazing. And there are so many ambassadors. I'll make sure that in our show notes that we'll put resources for people to have a look who's involved, who's behind it, and then what can you do? What can you as an individual do within your organisation, whether you have a reconciliation action plan or you don't have a RAP, just how are you committed to really making people feel that they belong? Diversity and inclusion, we've got the diversity there, but I don't think we've done inclusion well.
Yes.
But also the sense of belonging. Everybody it's like our birthright, to feel that we belong, especially within the country that we live in.
Yeah.
That we feel a sense of belonging within
And
our
safety,
community
yeah.
and safety.
Yeah.
But a sense of belonging in the workplace where we spend a lot of time. So I know I've got to wrap up this yarn because we have gone a little bit over time. But Walters, can I just quickly ask you to share with people that are listening, if they want to kind of, get involved more with community, with different programs, like, can you recommend it for people to, that want to do something? Like they might be a migrant living on the Sunshine Coast, or they just might be an Australian that is listening to this conversation. Could be anyone. What can they do to get involved? What's some of the things that you could recommend? Books?
I think,
documentaries? Is there anything in particular that you think this will really help you?
I think first to those that are out there that are suffering, racism or any form of discriminatory, it's never okay not to speak up. It's always good to speak up and do something, because you would never know where, if you're comfortable in that abuse, you probably never know what's calling you next. Or if you're in a job that you feel like you've got to be able to speak and make it straight, because the way we set up a place and make you could be able to be resilient and go through that, but the next person that's going to come in would probably not have that resilience. So it's always good to speak up and go through. Of course, the Sunshine Coast Shine the Light on Racism campaign have got some resources that people can go out there and check it out. I would say that we do organize like football events, because we think that those are the sort of things that breaks barrier, because it's have just one language and one people. I call it multicultural football or multicultural corps on the Sunshine Coast. There's a fair few of them that people can, come along, and it's just a space where it's a safe space. You can just kick ball and interact and break those initial barriers that actually gets people doubt and start being discriminatory towards one another. I
love the multicultural football. My kids love football, soccer.
Yes.
So I'm going to bring them along to the next event. So make sure you ring me.
Definitely.
And let me know so we can get our kids to get to know each other as well.
Absolutely.
It's good to see other black faces in the community. Yeah. I just want to say it takes a lot for people to call racism out. There is another campaign called Racism It Stops With Me.
Yes.
There is a national racism register now for people to actually go and put the lodge the complaint in the national register. We'll have these links in our show notes. But if this yarn has even caused a little bit of like trauma, if people feel triggered by this conversation, for First Nations peoples, 13 Yarn is a national hotline dedicated to First Nations people. There's also Lifeline, and there are other many support services. Even in your organisations, there should be an internal EAP that you can ring and talk to someone who's qualified. But it's not me.
And also your GP, if you're not trustworthy about your organisation, thinking that there is going to be any sort of things that can
backlash,
you can go to your GP. There's like a 5 free session that you could see someone for any support that you need. I
just learned something new. There's 5 free sessions at your GP if you need to talk about anything that might be worrying you. Or causing any distress. But Walter, look, it's been amazing just to have half an hour behind the microphone to get a bit more of an insight into not just the work that you do, but what drives you to continue to live your life on the sunny coast and do all the amazing things that you're doing in the community. So please, like I said, stay in touch.
Definitely.
And next time we'll catch up while we're kicking a soccer ball. Football.
Yeah, football.
Look, I can't wait, and I hope that more people that are listening to this that haven't experienced racism before just thinks about things differently, just to see what it does for people, how it affects people, but also when you do stand up and call racism out, how it can help us, in terms of shifting, getting to that next level, achieving greatness, reaching our full potential.
Yes.
That's what I want for my children, is to reach their full potential. So on that note, Walters, thank you for jumping on the podcast. I hope all you mob enjoyed this deadly yarn. Until next time, bye for now. If you'd like any more info on today's guest, please visit our show notes in the episode description. A big shout out to all you Deadly Mob and allies who continue to listen, watch and support our podcast. Your feedback means the world. You can rate and review the podcast on Apple and Spotify, or even head to our socials and YouTube channel and drop us a line. We'd love to hear from you. The Black Magic Woman podcast is produced by Clint Curtis.